challenging, but you know.
Hey, I was watching the.
Well, so I think we need to vote that. Designing the building. I got a full thing, right? Everybody needs respect. So this idea.
How are you, sir? Good to see you. Ready as I'll ever be.
So you went asking for it?
Yes, yes. Yeah.
Good luck with it.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Having trouble at the front door. Number 51 just flew by. And there's a guy standing not let in.
Okay. Room limit?
So to answer. Paramedics, they all work. Yeah, it's easy. But the transition's been tough. So the whole Stewart thing. Steve, how are you? Good, good.
Part of your reserve group? Say yes.
Gotta watch Mike Boynton before sophomore service.
Oh, really? I guess we can fill up some more time. Forget what I said? Bingo!
He's coming by.
You're not this big.
They said like
This event is co-hosted by the Medway Democratic and Republican Town Committees and the Franklin Democratic and Republican Town Committees. I am Darrell Coleza, tonight's Master of Ceremonies. Our questionnaires will be Tim Harris, Chair of the Medway Republican Town Committee, and Rachel Polakis, Chair of the Franklin Democratic Town Committee. Larry Ellsworth from the Medway Democratic Town Committee is our timekeeper. At this point, I would like to introduce Gene Capozzolo to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Hello, Medway, and welcome, Franklin. Many years ago, before I was a Medway resident, I went through the school system in Natick. And every morning, the superintendent would get on the loudspeaker and do the Pledge of Allegiance. And the homeroom teacher would ask one student to get up and lead the individual class. So here I am, 85 years later, in the school leading the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you for being here. Those of you in uniform would like to salute, that's great. Those of you would like to stand and put your hand over your heart, that's also great. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Excellent.
Thank you, Gene. Debates among political partisans center on issues facing citizens and communities, our time-honored part of our civil society. But debates are not an end in themselves. Rather, they help enlighten the citizens about those issues and help us decide which actions and which directions we take for the betterment of ourselves and our communities. The candidacies, the debates, and careful weighing of ideas by the citizens are all the basis of the American system of self-government. Tonight is just a most recent episode of great nearly 3 centuries of American experiment in democracy. Tonight's debate features 2 candidates for election to represent in the General Court for the 10th Norfolk District. The incumbent, Mr. Jeffrey Roy, a Democrat, and the challenger, Mr. Charles Bailey, a Republican. Each candidate will make an opening statement. The questionnaires will then ask several questions. Each candidate will have the same amount of time to answer each question. The candidates will alternate responding first to the questions. When the questionnaires complete their questioning, each candidate will have a chance to ask 2 questions to be answered by the other candidate. Finally, each candidate will make closing statements and we will wrap up the forum. We ask the audience members to refrain from speaking or demonstrating during the debate. You are welcome to remain after the debate to speak with the candidates and each other. I would like to thank the candidates, the Medway and Franklin Cable Access System, the Franklin and Medway Republicans and Democrats, our in-room audience, and thank you for your patience, and our viewers at home for making this event possible. Franklin Cable TV channels will be available to stream and caption on the Medway Cable Facebook and Franklin Cable YouTube channels. Please check their websites for further information. Now I'll turn it over to Larry.
Thank you very much. Per agreement, Mr. Roy will make the first opening statement, followed by Mr. Bailey. Mr. Roy will answer the first question first, followed by Mr. Bailey. Mr. Bailey will answer the second question first, followed by Mr. Roy, and we will alternate that way through the questions. Mr. Roy?
Well, thank you very much, Larry. Thank you, everyone, for taking time out of your night to be here and pay attention to what is happening in the 10th Norfolk District. I'm delighted to be here, and thank you, Chuck, for agreeing to be here as well. My journey in public service began following the 9/11 events. I had been practicing law for 28 years before then, and I was, as I looked around at the community and people coming together to help one another, I looked inside myself to see what I was doing to give back to my community. And it was that event that led me to run for the school committee in November of 2001. I served there for 10 years, 9 years as the chair of that committee, 2 years on the Franklin Town Council, and for the past 12 years, it has been my great honor and privilege to serve Medway and Franklin in the Great and General Court. For me, this work is about bringing people together, building relationships, and being a part of the solution. There are 3 pillars that really anchor my work as your representative. Education is number 1. I know the transformational impact that education had on me as a young person, and I want to see that benefit to every single student in the 10th Norfolk District and across the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Clean energy has been my focus for the past 4 years, and I'm focused on moving Massachusetts forward to energy independence for the first time in 100 years, and protecting this planet for our children, for our grandchildren, and for future generations. And substance abuse disorder has been another big part of my 12 years. Since 2005, we embarked on a journey together to offer resources to folks so that that have been touched by this disease. I tell you, my work is not finished. There's a lot more that we can do together, and that's why I'm asking for your vote on November 5th. Thank you.
Mr. Bailey?
I'd like to thank everyone in attendance tonight, and for those watching from home. I consider this my job interview before the people of Franklin and Medway for the position of state representative. I appreciate the opportunity to be seen and to be heard on the issues this evening. Thank you, Jeff. I've been married for 34 years, and Anna Maria and I have a son and daughter that were both educated through the Franklin Public School system. I myself went to Tri-County. After graduation, I went right into the military. I served with the 1st Infantry Division, the 2nd Infantry Division, and the 10th Mountain Division. Anna Maria and I were married in 1990. We came home in 1993, and we bought our first home on East Street in Franklin with a VA loan. I became an EMT in 1994, a paramedic in 1996, and a Franklin firefighter in 1999. I retired from the fire service in 2019 and earned my BA in psychology from Dean College not long after. I'm an educator, a hockey coach, and currently the EMS manager in the emergency department at the Morton Hospital in Taunton. Anna Maria and I were lucky enough to experience the American dream of owning our own home and raising our family in Franklin. I want that dream for everyone in Franklin and in Medway. That's what I have.
Great. Thank you. All right, we'll go to the questions.
Great.
Question 1.
We'll start out.
And
That's
Mr.
good.
Roy, you will answer first.
All right. Thank you both for joining us tonight. Looking forward to a good conversation with both of you guys over the course of the next hour. We'll start with you, Jeff. This is a 1-minute response time. And the question is, Massachusetts is considered one of the least transparent legislatures in the country. Constituents simply do not know who supports and opposes bills. Should all committee and full body votes be documented roll call votes? And what other specific changes would you support to open up the legislative process? We'll start with you, Jeff.
Thank you. That's a great question, and it really depends on who you ask with regard to transparency. The state integrity investigation, following the money, and the swamp index would take issue with whether we are not transparent in the legislature. Let me tell you, I embrace transparency as a state representative, and I began my transparency journey on the school committee. Franklin was the first school committee in the state to have a website and a blog. I continued that practice with the town council. I continue that practice as a state representative. I have a website. I have 2 blogs. I have Facebook, 3 Facebook pages, Twitter, and Instagram. Those, and 15 seconds. The state has a website that is world-class, that you can sign up on mylegislature.gov and get access to all the information. And finally, I want to say my committee did an experiment in transparency last session, where we published all of the bills and notes, and the BU class, Boston University Law School class, published all of that material. Guess what? Nobody paid attention. But it's out there, it's accessible, and we are quite transparent, and I will continue along that line of transparency. Thank you.
Mr. Bailey?
Mr. Bailey?
Yes, we should have roll call votes, particularly during the budget process. No one actually knows how the budget is decided other than the top echelon in the legislature and the Senate. Each representative and senator make a pitch for funding in their district, but at the end of the day, it's the upper echelon that decides who gets the money. I'm all for transparency.
Thank you, Mr.
Just
Bailey.
by way of rebuttal, we do have roll call votes. You can go online and you can watch those roll call votes. You can see how we vote, and the committee votes are all recorded as well.
From what I understand, not 100% though across the board.
Thank you, Mr. Bailey.
Yep.
Okay.
Next question, please.
Rachel?
Hi, that's my question. Rachel Plukas here, the chair of the Franklin Democratic Town Committee, and I'm very happy to be asking you guys these questions, so thank you for answering this first one. Charlie, you're the first answeree. So the MBTA, Community Zoning Law Requirements, will significantly impact communities like Franklin and Medway. The additional units will strain our schools, police, fire, and infrastructure. Do you believe this legislation is appropriate for Medway and Franklin, and why? And also, what legislation would you propose to mitigate the financial impacts that each community will face? You have 1 minute, so good luck.
I do not agree with the new zoning laws as they change the dynamics of a community without the consent of the residents. Excuse me. And with little benefit to the town, both Franklin and Medway already exceed 40B requirements. Medway is considered an adjacent community and shouldn't even be in the conversation. The legislature should be focused on fixing a broken public transit system so that more people will use it rather than punishing towns who refuse to amend their zoning laws. This is more overreach from Beacon Hill that my opponent voted in favor for. I would propose an amendment to the law that would allow towns to opt out if in compliance with 40B.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. The MBTA Communities Act, believe it or not, is just 3 simple paragraphs in the Massachusetts general laws. 3 paragraphs. I urge you to read it. The law doesn't require any building. The law requires zoning. And it's zoning to address a housing crisis that is going on in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. My own children can't live in Franklin because they can't afford a house. We do not have enough property that's affordable for our younger generations, and we need to get more use out of our buildings and allow owners of the buildings to decide what they want to do with it. I think the big problem is not with the legislation that we have. It's the guidelines that were issued by the Healy administration, which were debated in the Supreme Judicial Court yesterday. They'll tell us whether or not this law will survive, and it's an opportunity for our communities to build up the housing stock. Franklin embraced it. I know Medway did have a complaint about it, but I'm working with those officials on it. Thank you.
Okay. No rebuttal. So next question will be for Jeff. Water supplies are increasingly testing positive for the forever chemical PFAS and other dangerous types of chemicals. What new rules, practices, programs can the state put in place to protect our water supplies, such as banning turf, limiting lawn chemicals, things of that nature, and pesticides, and simply make it more affordable and practical for municipalities? How would you support Medway and Franklin with respect to funding PFAS-related projects?
Well, first of all, in 2000...
And this is a, 1 minute response as well.
In 2020, the legislature set up a PFAS interagency task force to investigate what's going on. Held 9 public hearings, and in 2022, our Attorney General sued 13 manufacturers of PFAS forever chemicals that we use in firefighting foam. So those are some of the steps that we've already taken. In August, just 2 months ago, our legislature passed, and the governor did sign, a bill to ban PFAS in firefighting clothing, which was something that our firefighters wanted. So we're taking steps to do it, and we have the resources. There's a resource website out there that's available to homeowners, and we're trying to get as much help to our communities to solve that particular crisis.
Thank you. Mr. Bailey, same question for you. 1 minute response.
It goes without saying that we should all have clean drinking water. Towns should be encouraged to invest in their water treatment plants and test more frequently. I would suggest a rebate or an incentive program for communities making these investments, like Mass Save or energy efficiency upgrades. In addition, the ECSCDC grant program provides states with grant funds from the EPA to assist small and disadvantaged communities to improve their drinking water by carrying out projects and activities to address emerging contaminants, including PFAS. That's all I have.
Thank you.
All right, question 4 is shorter, but it's no more easy. I'm going to ask Mr. Bailey first. Do you support funding of programs for undocumented migrants in the Commonwealth, and why?
I do not. Ours is a nation of immigrants, and our diversity is one of our greatest strengths. My in-laws immigrated here from southern Italy, and they did it the right way. They came in through Ellis Island, they found work, and they learned the language. They were proud to become U.S. citizens. Nothing was given to them. They earned every bit of what they had. Unfortunately, the Massachusetts right to shelter law has already created a crisis and has exacerbated the existing housing problems for our citizens. The right to shelter law was designed to ensure the indigent and the homeless of the Commonwealth had access to housing, not to act as a clearinghouse for people flooding across our southern border.
Thank you, Mr. Bailey.
I do not support funding for undocumented migrants. I do support the shelter law that we have in place now. That shelter law was put in place to help parents with children and pregnant women who are dealing with homelessness. And it's a program that's been around for 40 years. How much time did we have to answer this question? 30 seconds on this issue?
Yeah.
I agree.
I said good
We
luck.
could do the whole hour.
Well, look, I will say that our legislature is actively involved in looking at caps, reforms, and reporting on the shelter law. And if you look at what the governor is presenting to us on a bi-weekly basis, you'll have an understanding of what's happening with that program. I don't have enough time to go into all the details. I urge you to read my blog, which I cover this issue in depth. And also note that we have this problem in the Commonwealth because the federal government will not take responsibility and ownership for the border problem. So, thank you.
Okay, next question. This will start with Jeff. There are now inequities in access and funding between vocational schools and comprehensive schools. Taking this into consideration, the need for a well-trained workforce is critical at this time with the jobs market the way it is. What actions would you propose to mitigate these inequities? This is a 1 minute response.
Sure. Well, first of all, we need to build or remodel more of the Voc schools throughout the Commonwealth. There's a waiting list to get into these Voc schools. And the careers that are out there are good paying jobs, and we should give more kids an opportunity to get into these vocational schools. I'm thrilled that the voters of our communities supported the rebuilding of the Tri-County Regional Vocational Technical High School. I'm thrilled that that's going to take place. I'm thrilled that it's going to be an energy efficient building, a net zero building, and it's going to offer opportunities. Aside from the manufacturing jobs that we need employers for, the Mass CEC, the Clean Energy Center, has indicated that 38,000 new clean energy jobs are going to be created in the next 10 years. We need to fill those jobs, and our Voc schools are the best opportunity to do that.
Thank you. Mr. Bailey, same question, 1 minute response.
I am a graduate of Tri-County, and I am a strong believer in the trades. I consider myself a lifelong learner, and I would do all that I can to secure state funding for all education models. Thank you.
Thank you. Rachel?
All right. Mr. Bailey, Medway and Franklin are both minimum school aid districts. As our state representative, what actions would you take to support our schools in maintaining the high level of education that has been provided to students and to attract and retain qualified teachers? This is another 1 minute.
1 minute, okay. I would work with the school committees and superintendents from both communities to put the needs of the students first. The teachers are not the problem, and they should feel secure that they have a safe job from 1 year to the next. I would recommend a third-party audit of expenditures and systems and identify duplicate administration roles or areas that technology could reduce redundancies. Thank you.
I understand that Franklin and Medway are minimum aid communities. That's because the amount of state aid that they get exceeds what their foundation budget requirements are. So I fought hard when we had the Student Opportunity Act passed a few years ago, fought hard to hold Medway and Franklin harmless so that they would not get a reduction in the state aid. And in fact, they're getting an increase based on the number of students. And in FY25, the budget that we just did, I fought hard to increase the amount of minimum aid that would come to the communities. The governor proposed $30 per student, and we in the House did $104 per student. And that's tripling of what the governor had proposed. I'm also including earmarks in the state budget where I advocate and fight for money to the district and to bring in programs that the district itself can't afford. And finally, we have eliminated unfunded mandates by making most of our laws to say subject to appropriation. And the Genocide Education Act, which I was a champion of in the legislature, does not require schools to teach unless we provide the funding, and in FY25 we're providing $3 million.
Thank you. Okay, next question. We'll start with you, Jeff. The governor recently signed the act modernizing firearms that significantly update laws around guns and made them much more stringent. Please explain your position on this act, and this is a 1 minute response.
Well, I supported the bill that we enacted in 2024. I will tell you, when I became a legislator, I went to legislative boot camp out at UMass Amherst, and I was coming home on a Friday in September of 2012, and I was excited about what was going to happen in the legislature, thinking about the bills and things I would be working on that session. And as I turned on the radio on that ride home, I was learning about the Newtown shooting. And that shooting certainly changed the trajectory for my first term. We did a Gun Violence Act in 2014, and when the Supreme Court issued its Bruin decision, we realized that we had to look at the current firearms laws that we had in Massachusetts and overhaul them. That's what we did this summer. We're not taking guns away from lawful owners. We're just making the streets safer for our citizens, and I will stand behind that effort all the way.
Same question for you, Chuck.
1 minute.
1 minute response.
I recently spoke at the 2A rally on the Boston Common to denounce House Bill 4885. We already had one of the toughest gun laws in the nation. I support background checks and required training that's governed by the Massachusetts State Police. This law is a complete overreach of power and was pushed through too fast. It criminalizes law-abiding gun owners. Soon, only criminals will have guns. We need to enforce our current gun laws and repeal 4885.
I'll say in rebuttal that the law that we passed reviews what we had to do based on the Bruin decision, and also outlaws ghost guns, outlaws guns that are printed with 3D printers, and also gives more leeway for family members and licensed professionals to invoke the red flag laws.
Can I respond to that?
No, sorry.
Post afterwards.
Okay.
But you can respond to this question. It's number 8, which is building new housing is costly, and it's getting more so. Many factors cause this price rise. It includes the cost of labor, materials, and land, plus environmental and other requirements placed on developers. Restrictive zoning also plays a part by reducing the number of sites for young families, for multifamily and mixed-use development. Seniors and young families are being priced out of the market. How would you tackle the problem of too high housing costs? Do it in 1 minute, please.
The American dream of owning your own home for young families is disappearing. It's more lucrative for developers to build cluster zoning units over single-family homes because of the regulatory and environmental restrictions placed upon them. I would eliminate green energy requirements for residential buildings and encourage builders to construct smaller starter homes of 1,500 square feet or less. Further, I would not impose a wish list of community improvements on the builder as with the Friendly 40B project in Franklin.
Thank you very much. Mr. Roy?
Sure. This summer, the legislature passed a landmark housing bill which includes $5.16 billion over the next 5 years, along with 50 policy initiatives to counter rising housing costs, along with the high demand and limited supply. Now, we talked about the MBTA Communities Act earlier. That was another step to help us build up our housing. There's a very limited demand, and under the bill that we passed this summer, we're going to support first-time home buyers and provide resources to build more housing for low to moderate income residents. And we're also allowing accessory dwelling units as a matter of right and conversion of vacant commercial properties to housing. These are some steps. It's not the end-all, be-all, but we are taking significant steps. And again, $5.16 billion, and that includes fixing and renovating our public housing throughout the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
Rebuttals? All right, next question. We'll start with Mr. Roy here. This is a 1-minute response. Synthetic turf fields are being constructed using taxpayer funds across the state. Health and safety concerns have been raised by many citizens of both Medway and Franklin. Should these fields be regulated or even allowed in the state?
The
1-minute response.
field should certainly be regulated, and I'm looking at Tracy Stewart from Medway, who's in the back of the audience, one of the champions on this issue, and a frequent flyer in my office on this particular topic. There's ongoing federal studies being done where researchers are collecting data on it, and there are best practices out there about how to use these turf fields, about what to do with your clothing after you've used a turf field. And if they are, in fact, poison, they should not be used. But right now, we do not have the data to support banning turf fields, but we are ongoing research on that particular topic, and we will keep looking.
Thank you. Mr. Bailey?
Well, I'll speak to what I know. This decision should be made by the towns, not the state. I'm not a fan of turf fields because of the frequent knee injuries that they contribute to. Turf doesn't give like grass. It has potentially, I'm not a fan of turf field. Turf does not give like grass and has potentially harmful chemicals and plastic. I know there's less maintenance and zero irrigation needed with turf fields, but it's dangerous for our athletes.
Thank you. Rebuttal? Good.
No.
Rachel?
All right. Mr. Bailey, the current system for providing affordable housing is unsustainable. In addition, there is a shortage of affordable and accessible housing in Franklin and Medway. How would you address these issues to make housing affordable and accessible to all?
Franklin and Medway already had a housing crisis, which was exacerbated by the influx of migrants through the right to shelter law. Young adults, seniors, and those on fixed incomes and the immigrants are all competing for affordable housing. I would reduce regulatory requirements and environmental restrictions for builders, encourage them to construct smaller homes. The focus should be on the citizens of Franklin and Medway and the American dream of owning your own home.
Thank you.
Well, we addressed the housing with a previous question, and we did take major steps with a housing law, so I don't want to repeat and restate what we said there, but I will take issue with the notion that migrants are causing this crisis. The housing crisis has been going on for 10, 20 years, and zoning restrictions, keeping folks out of our communities has been the problem. On the migrant issue, I will go to, there's a company in Marlboro that was in the Boston Globe just the other day that for the first time in a decade, they are at full capacity for workers, and those workers are being filled, those jobs are being filled by migrants who are being trained in our workforce program, doing jobs that many citizens will not do. So it's actually helping our economy as opposed to hurting us, and that's not the cause of the housing crisis.
Thank you.
All right, congrats, guys. We're about a little over halfway there.
How many questions have you gone through so far?
We're on 11.
You're on 11.
We're on 11.
You beat it. I owe you a beer.
You do. I'm not going to forget either. All right, Jeff, this one's for you. The Cannabis Commission has ruled that host agreements are no longer allowed and those in place must be terminated. In the case of the town of Medway, we would lose approximately $500,000 a year in anticipated revenue. Did you support this ruling, and would you consider repealing it? 1 minute response.
Yeah, I certainly did not support that ruling, and if you've read the papers or watched TV, the Cannabis Control Commission is undergoing incredible scrutiny at this time. There's problems there, and in fact, our Cannabis Committee has called for a hearing on October 30th, just a few weeks from now, to inform its reconsideration of the 2017 law. Now, the Cannabis Control Commission hasn't eliminated host community agreements. They have come up with a standard host community agreement that they want to have communities agree to. And that arose from the situation down in Fall River, where the mayor was taking bribes and was convicted of unlawful behavior in trying to squeeze cannabis companies. So there's a lot that needs to be revisited, and I'm thrilled that our committee is taking reconsideration of that law, and I'll support those changes.
Chuck, same question.
So
1 minute response.
I actually agree with Jeff on this one.
All right, that calls for applause.
I do not. I would vote to repeal. Host towns like Medway should be grandfathered. The business could always leave. They're not happy with the agreement.
Succinct answer.
I agree with everything he just
You
said.
get a couple
so
more
I'm not
questions
gonna-
then.
I want that tape.
All right, Rachel.
Well, here's another one I'm sure there's a lot of harmony on. And I'll ask you first, Mr. Bailey. Hospitals and other healthcare facilities are in crisis. Private equity, including the selling and renting back of properties, has gotten much of the blame for our statewide crisis. What initiatives, penalties, oversight, and restrictions do you support to improve all hospitals and healthcare facilities? According to Medicare.gov, 2 local nursing homes, it's Medway Community Manor and the Cedarwood Gardens in Franklin, both of those have a 2 and a 3 out of a 5 rating. So specifically, what would you do to try to turn those 2 sites around? And this is, actually, it's a minute and a half,
thank God.
so take your time.
So,
But
This-
be succinct.
This is a complex issue that requires a lot of investigation. The state is responsible for allowing Stewart to come into Massachusetts and to grow, knowing they were financially irresponsible in other states. JACO and the DPH failed to closely monitor staffing and supplies. All the Stewart hospitals have been sold to nonprofits except for the closing of the Kearney and the Neshoba Valley Medical Center, thus allowing state insight on the organization's financial health. I am the EMS manager in the emergency department at the Morton Hospital, which was just purchased by Lifespan, a nonprofit, and know all too well the damage Stewart has done to our healthcare system. The two nursing facilities in question are for-profit, and ownership is out of state. We need to protect our seniors and those who cannot advocate for themselves by ensuring that these skilled nursing facilities are closely monitored by JACO and the DPH. When they cannot advocate for when they fail, we need to do more than a civil monetary fine. We need to suspend their activity or lien their health care reimbursements. And I learned today that that one nursing home in Franklin went into receivership.
Thank you.
So hopefully better things are coming for there.
Representative Roy, you've got the same question in the same amount of time.
Well, let me begin with the long-term care in the nursing homes, because just a few weeks ago, the legislature enacted a long-term care bill, and the governor did sign that bill, and that is going to require DPH to inspect these nursing homes on an annual basis. It's going to be empowered to review rates and funding for ratios and patient care, and it also provides funding for new CNAs and LPNs. We need more nurses. Talk about workforce training. We need more nurses in that space. In terms of the hospital situation, I did have experience in this field when I was the acting chair of the Healthcare Finance Committee, and I did actually have an opportunity to meet with Ralph De La Torre, and didn't like him then, certainly don't like him now, don't like what he did to our hospital system in Massachusetts, and one of the pieces of legislation that's in conference negotiations at this time is to prohibit hospitals from selling the land under their buildings and then leasing it back to the facility, making those buildings absolutely worthless for sale, because you can't sell a building without the land under it. So that is in conference negotiations right now. I'm hoping we have a Speaker of the House who is an expert on healthcare finance, and I don't think he will leave without getting that situation under wraps. Thank you.
Can I add?
Rebuttal?
I'll just add to that I'm part of Lifespan, the Morton Hospital in Taunton, and St. Anne's in Fall River, and their property was purchased as well as part of the sale. So that's a great thing for us here in Massachusetts.
Okay, next question's for Mr. Roy. This is a 1-minute response, a lot less, lot easier than the last question. What are the 3 or 4 most important infrastructure issues facing the state at this time, specifically in our district? And what specific actions would you propose to address them? 1-minute response.
Roads and bridges, public transportation, and energy infrastructure. Roads and bridges, actually, the citizens of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts passed the Fair Share Amendment by a referendum vote, which required the funding to be targeted towards education and transportation. That's going to take care of those 2 items right off the bat. We had anticipated that we were going to collect $1 billion a year from the Fair Share Amendment. I'm happy to report that last fiscal year, we actually collected $2.2 billion for both transportation and education. You've seen a boost in early education in Massachusetts from that, and you're seeing a boost in transportation projects around the Commonwealth. You just have to go up to 495 and the Mass Pike and see the massive infrastructure improvements that are being there. We're committed to getting the resources to help us in these areas.
Mr. Bailey.
The MBTA is the first thing that comes to mind, particularly with inadequate and undependable transit system. It makes no sense for them to impose the MBTA zoning laws under these or any conditions. The Massachusetts bridge system are the oldest in the country. According to the state highways officials, as of 2022, we're also the fourth largest share of poor bridges in the national highway system, according to a state report. Water supply and treatment in Franklin and Medway struggles to keep up with its supply and demand under the current conditions, never mind with the additional housing that's proposed. I would request state aid for their repair and improvements.
Thank you.
Mr. Bailey, communities like Medway are seeing an influx of energy projects that are driven by the state's renewable energy goals. What should the state be doing to help mitigate the impacts on these communities? This is 1 minute as well.
Energy initiatives in protecting our environment is important, but all the environment is important, such as marine life, effects on commercial fishermen, effects on food we consume, and affordability of housing. All energy options should be considered to balance affordability, independence, in the environment. My opponent has been pushing through an aggressive energy bill without regard for the cost, without regard of cost to the taxpayer. The return of investment without weighing the benefits with the risk.
Thank you. Representative Roy?
Well, let me begin by letting you know that the purpose and the work behind that energy bill is to lower energy costs. And how do you lower energy costs? You lower energy costs by getting energy independence. Right now, we rely on the import of natural gas from Pennsylvania. And when the war in Ukraine occurred and natural gas was demanded out in Europe, they cut off our supply from LNG tankers that would come into Everett. So all we had coming into Massachusetts was natural gas from Pennsylvania. Led to price spikes. Offshore wind offers us free energy once that infrastructure is in place and gives us energy independence for the first time in 100 years. 100 years ago, we lit the world with whale oil. Today, we're going to light the world with solar and wind energy, which is going to drive those electricity costs down.
All right.
Questioners and candidates, we appear to have time for 2 more questions from our questioners, and then we'll go to the candidate questions for each other.
Thank you.
Great. So, Mr. Roy, this question is for you, and it's a 1-minute response. Franklin and Medway, like many other communities in the state, are planning much-needed municipal building projects like schools, police and fire, town halls, things of that nature. Rising costs and tight municipal budgets make it very difficult to allocate funds for these types of projects. What specific actions do you support to help municipalities like Franklin and Medway to fund and execute these types of projects? For example, should we have a state have a municipal building authority similar to the school building authority? 1-minute response.
Actually like that idea of a municipal building authority, and something I certainly will take back with me when we get back to work. But I will say that going back to the energy infrastructure, you've got an energy infrastructure project that's coming to Medway in terms of a battery storage facility, which is very badly needed for taking care of our intermittent renewables, like when the sun's not shining and the wind's not blowing, we need a source of energy, and right now we rely on oil and natural gas, but battery storage will give us that ability to get energy from instead of gas or oil. And that battery storage project, once it's built, is going to provide $3 million under a host community agreement, $3 million annually to the town of Medway, and that's a great source for funding that building, and I think the town officials are talking of that very prospect.
They may well be. Thank you. Mr. Bailey, same question, 1-minute response.
We're talking about the municipal building authority, right? Not batteries, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Correct.
All right. The towns need to be financially responsible. These projects can be funded through capital fund savings, debt exclusions, if approved by the voters, or financed if needed.
Just by way of rebuttal, I talked about battery because the storage facility will bring $3 million to the town of Medway to help with their infrastructure project. So I think it's important that people know the benefits that are going to come, not only for energy infrastructure, but for municipal.
And coincidentally, our next question and last question from the panel here is related to the batteries. So question starts with you, Chuck.
Nice segue.
Bailey first, right?
Yep. Do you support the legislation that gave the DPU the authority to overrule local bylaws in order to build battery storage facilities similar to one being built in the town of Medway at this current time? If yes, please explain why you would support this legislation, which actually took away the rights of local citizens by allowing developers to bypass some of the local planning and zoning boards. 1 minute response.
I do not support any legislation that disenfranchises the people in question. The DPU should not impose their own will on the community of Medway. The battery storage facilities have a high upfront cost, limited capacity, maintenance is needed, and there are serious safety issues. Thank you.
You ready for this?
Mr. Roy.
I agree with Mr. Bailey. There is no legislation that gives DPU the authority, and in fact, I have filed legislation that's going to give the authority to the Energy Facilities Siting Board to work on these particular issues, and that particular legislation is going to provide technical support for communities. It's going to include an intervenor trust fund for those communities who don't have the resources available. It will provide a pool of funds for them to get technical assistance, hire experts, and do the work in this field. So yes, agreed. DPU should not be making these decisions. The communities should be making the decisions under a consolidated permitting process. The state should be involved in a consolidated permitting process, and all of this should go through the EFSB.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very glad we were able to consolidate those two questions, and here's the last one. I'm going to jump right to the end. It's a question that I think almost everybody in this room has been asked in some interview or another.
Sorry, Rachel, which question are you going to?
We're going to question number 21, the last one on our list, which, as I said, is one that we've all
Okay.
experienced. So, if Mr. Bailey, can you describe two situations? One is where you changed your mind on a significant issue after listening to opposing viewpoints, and the second part is a time when you had to make an unpopular but a principled decision. Yeah, this is 1 minute as well. Thank you.
Two parts.
Yes,
Okay.
I know.
So-
But we've all been asked that question, so.
So as the Franklin Fire Union president, job descriptions were proposed, and the body was dead against it. After tiresome negotiations with the town, I agreed to mediation and realized that job descriptions set a professional standard and held us all accountable, and it was necessary to secure a cost of living increase for all members.
Thank
So I
you.
agreed with the mediator and pushed that through. Unpopular but principled decision. Just before shift change one morning, we responded to a call for a newborn that stopped breathing and turned blue while nursing. Baby was 1 day old. My partner, it was his turn to take care of patient care, and he wanted to get out of there. But I knew from my education, training, my time in the NICU at Rhode Island Hospital that this could be a sign of a congenital heart defect. So I forced him to take the patient to the hospital safely.
Thank you for sharing.
That's my time.
Thank you. Representative Roy?
Sure. I will say that probably one area where my mind was changed was during my time with the Harm Reduction Commission. I was appointed by the Speaker of the House to represent the House on that commission that was studying ways that we could handle the substance use disorder crisis that was hitting our state. I served on that commission from 2017 to 2019. And one of the things that we were asked to consider was whether safe injection sites and a pilot for that program should be brought. And a safe injection site is where a user of drugs can go and use their drugs and inject in the presence of a physician or a nurse. I was dead set against it, but after listening to the testimony of the folks, I ended up changing my mind there. In difficult decisions, I make difficult decisions and unpopular decisions every day. This job requires you to make tough decisions and take tough votes, and I'm not afraid to do it.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, questioners. At this point, we will go to questions by the candidates for each other. So, this will be exciting. Representative Roy, you have the opportunity to ask a question of candidate Bailey. You have 30 seconds for your question. You have 1 minute to respond.
So Chuck, I have a reputation in the State House as being one of the most accessible members of the House. I take meetings with everyone. I don't care what their position is. I listen to viewpoints. I will say that I've never heard from you by email, by letter, by phone, coming to office hours, in any form of communication. And you've expressed some grievances tonight, but I'm curious as to why you have not taken the opportunity to make your views known to your representative in the general court.
Well, that's a great question, and honestly, I don't have an answer for you. I honestly don't.
Fair enough.
Yep.
Mr. Bailey, you have the chance to ask Representative Roy one question. 30 seconds for the question, 1 minute for the response.
So I have a ballot question for you. Question 1 on the ballot. Representative Roy, do you support an audit of the legislature?
I do not support an audit of the legislature. I will be voting no on question 1, and I'll tell you why. I don't support it based on the previous auditor, Suzanne Bump, who served in that position for over 10 years, has come out and said the auditor does not have the legal authority to audit the legislature. The Attorney General has reviewed the question and went through it and said under separation of powers, auditing the legislature is unconstitutional. I fully expect that that question's going to pass, and there'll probably be a legal challenge to it. And however the courts decide, that's what we're willing to abide by.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, Representative Roy, you can ask another question of Mr. Bailey. Bailey, 1 minute response for you.
So it's my question. Okay.
Your question.
One question I have, you have seen my list of accomplishments. If you have seen the ad that we ran in the local paper, the bills that I've sponsored, the bills that I've fought for, and the money that I have brought into this district. Can you tell us what you will do, if anything, to improve upon that record?
I will see that the money goes to more than just one dance school, more than one substance abuse program, not the same one year in and year out.
Another succinct response, thank you. Mr. Bailey, you get the last candidate question. Fire away. Mr. Roy, it's a 1 minute response.
Representative Roy, I understand you are in leadership and by all counts next in line to be the most powerful House and Ways, to lead the most powerful House and Ways in.
Please don't jinx me.
Oh my God. I can't keep my mouth dry.
Can you shut the tape off for this part?
Can you guarantee that if you were to become chair of the House Ways and Means Committee, that you will allow to have more equitable, open budget process for all 351 cities and towns in the Commonwealth? There, I got it out.
Well, thank you. Thank you for that question, and thank you for that confidence in me. I will serve, and I do serve in all of my roles at the pleasure of the Speaker. And if I'm called upon to do that particular job, I expect that I would run that committee just the way I run the Telecommunications, Utilities, and Energy Committee. I'm known, I have a reputation of being the most accessible legislator in the House. No one has trouble getting a meeting with me. I listen to experts, I listen to advocates, I listen to constituents, and I will bring the same to that particular job, because I think it's important to get a feel for where people are, and I would certainly honor your input if I'm so lucky to get that position.
Thank you. And,
Thank you.
you know, on your last question of me, I will make more of an effort to reach out to you in the future.
You gonna buy the first beer?
I don't drink. I'm sorry, I'll buy you Gatorade.
Gatorade.
All right, the questioning has ended. We will now go to closing statements. Mr. Bailey has opted to go second, so, Mr. Roy, take it away.
First of all, 2 minutes. First of all, I want to say thank you to everyone. You hung in. I haven't seen a yawn in the room, and that's delightful. But I will say, if anything, what you've witnessed here tonight is two rather distinct visions of where the Commonwealth is and where the Commonwealth will go. The bottom line from me, I hope you heard about solutions, about working with others, about being a part of this community, and working with and on behalf of both communities of Medway and Franklin. I've always been a problem solver. As a trial lawyer, now I hate to admit it, but it's 38 years now as a trial lawyer. That's about solving problems. I bring that energy and experience and enthusiasm to my work as a legislature, because this is problem solving. We've helped thousands of constituents with issues running from health care to unemployment and some of the most desperate situations that people have come to our office. We've always responded. We've always taken care of these folks. I have a video online that I ask you to watch, and you're going to see some of the people that we've stepped up for to help in some of their most desperate situations. And that's what I'm focused on, bringing people together, building relationships, learning and listening, and consulting with you to come to the best solution. My motivation is to see our communities thrive and work together. It's the most important ingredient. The people that I represent, that I have the honor and privilege to represent, are the most important ingredient in the work that I do, and the people that I've been honored and privileged to serve for the past 12 years. And again, I ask for your vote on November 5th. Thank you so much.
Mr. Bailey?
Thank you all again for this opportunity. The people of Franklin and Medway deserve a leader with life experience, not a lawyer who's skilled at drafting legislation with a focus on the national agenda. The focus should be on you. I've lived a life of service to our country as a soldier, our communities as a firefighter paramedic, and now I want to serve as your state representative. And I ask for your vote in this election. Thank you.
All right, and with that, Mr. Colezza, take us home.
Yes. Our debate is now over. Again, we thank the candidates, the co-hosts, our television partners, the fire chief. The audience is welcome to remain.
Especially the fire.
Yeah. The audience is welcome to remain to meet with the candidates and discuss events. As a reminder, this debate will be rebroadcast numerous times on the Medway and Franklin cable TV channels, and will be available to stream with captions on the Medway Cable Facebook and the Franklin Cable YouTube channels. Please check their websites for further information. We thank you all at home for your tuning in. Good night, and thank you again.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you.